Hey guys, it's Belhaven here. I'm here with Rip, two of your favorite slicers and dicers, I'm sure. Okay, all four of us are awesome. I know.
It's all true.
But we're going to do some dice not included videos, one of which we're going to do right now, talking about this beautiful, awesome island. And this was all actually brought to us from the crazy and kind of scary mind of Rip over here, our awesome DM. So we're going to go over a couple of key points of this, and I get to have the fun of interrogating him for a change, since I'm normally the one always having to ask the questions about the game.
I guess I've earned it. All right, give it to me.
Okay, so initially when we come in, we see the island, and what was your original idea behind the island?
Um, well, I wanted something that would be easy to work within Tabletop Simulator itself. You got to make all the different tables for all the different locations, and one of the things that happens a lot when you're GMing is your players will just run askew. They'll go, "We're heading east," and they'll just take off east. Uh, which, when I'm doing it on an actual table, that's fine. I can come up with whatever I need to on the fly. But to be able to make the tables, I have to have a set location that the tables exist within. So therefore, I decided to create an island that was pretty hard to get off of, if not impossible.
Oh, and that brings us to Impassable Reef, the scary, oh, mighty Impassable Reef. So, as being a player in your campaigns and getting to hear little bits and pieces of it, I know that it's an impassable reef. You come to the island, but you don't leave, like Hotel California style. But
Exactly.
tell me some more about the impassable reef. So, where did that idea come from? Where did you decide that we weren't ever leaving?
Okay, so part of the storyline involves a god using his own his own means. I don't want to get too deep into that because I don't want to give anything away.
Darn
But
it.
in order for him to use the island in that fashion, he had to create some way to keep everybody out. And his creative way to do it was to create not only a physical barrier, but also a barrier that life itself would be drawn to, that creatures would want to live in, as they do in a. And in a world such as this, it's easy to imagine that the creatures that are drawn there also enjoy, a free meal in the ocean. So when you do wreck here, if you do wreck here, it makes it so that not many of you make it into the land alive. And to try to leave and pass that reef, you would have to deal with many, many creatures and obstacles. To that end, nobody really goes outside of the rivers that separate the islands.
Okay, so now there's two key islands here, correct?
I mean, it's all one general island, but yes, there's definitely a division between them, and I like to think of them more as three. There are two very defined ones, and this third one is, I mean, this pass that's here is very hard to get to, and unless you're an explorer, you're probably not going to find it.
Okay. And I know as a player, I've only gotten to explore in this fun main area so far, so I'm excited to see more of it. I don't want to see the swamp though yet. I'm scared. And
Yeah.
then, so now we have kind of this giant map, but inside of the map itself, you have actual cities designated and inns, and the main one of which being Durian, the center city, correct?
Yeah, that's where most of the commerce and trade occurs. It comes from the fingers of the island, the other places that people live and exist. And every one of the cities has their own specialty that they import export to make the island itself work. Um, the island was created by castaways, so they came here with not much and had to create what they could.
And
And
survive all these random creatures that this god is creating.
oh, even more so than that. There's not just that, but there's also the weather patterns. The weather itself of the island in the winter months, it gets hurricane like.
Now, am I
It's
right in
hard.
saying that the god mostly creates the weather and controls that still as well, though?
I'm not giving you that for free.
Uh,
Mm-mm.
so,
No, no.
tell me more about your cities.
Well, to the north here we have Pearsons Hold. Pearsons Hold is the very first city that was founded. It was founded by the first castaways that wrecked here off the ship, actually called the Merin. Thus the name, the Isle of Merin. Uh, but the castaways, after making it to land and grouping up, headed south to try to find something to live in, passing through this heavy jungle. And while passing through the jungle, a couple heroes emerged. One being Jebediah Pearson. He was the muscle of the group. He was also aided by the by Mr. Hootenanny. He was a rich man from the original land of Calabasas. That he also was a great thinker. He was great at drafting, engineering, things of that nature. So between the two of them, they led these castaways to eventually find a massive gate in the jungle. And the gate from the southern side of it had a road, a pristine, perfect road heading south. It's almost as if the foliage will not encroach upon. The road doesn't require upkeep. Nothing ever punches through. You'll never find a blade of grass out of place within the.
So this gate and this road were already here. Tell us about what it was already on the island when they got here.
Well, after finding the gate in the road, they built Pearsons Hold. And of course, people got unhappy about being in Pearsons Hold. So they took off and headed south. And the people who headed south eventually discovered the beginnings of Durian. Durian originally was just the stone wall inside of it. And when they found it, it was a godsend. I mean, it's days and days and days to the south across the road. And they were hungry and starving. People are starving. Plus, the elements themselves are bearing on them, the creatures, all of that. So, upon discovering a walled off area with food already inside on these fruit trees and places to call home, they settled immediately. And because of having that inner wall, Durian was able to grow faster than any other town on the island.
Because they're already
Of course,
protected.
yeah, exactly. You've already got this massive nothing's going to get through
Now,
protecting your small populace.
the walls in the road are made of the same material, right?
Yeah, the walls are a much more refined version of that material. The material itself is almost like I believe the word is basalt. It's volcanic rock. But
But it's
it's
laid in a way that it's pretty much indestructible.
almost paved, yeah. I mean,
So
it's
the roads, these walls, this gate, they've been there, they've always been there, and it's assumed that they will always be there.
Yeah, none of the castaways are aware of where these places came from. Even the Great Library in Durian doesn't have any information on the routes and the structures that exist here.
Okay.
It's one of the great mysteries.
So now what happens? Like, we have Pearson Hold. Pearson started that kind of, he kind of took that over. People were
Mhm.
like, okay, what else is there? And then they find these walls for Durian, and they make the city of Durian, which becomes what we find out is a key central point. And
Mhm.
then what happens from there? How do we get Brooks, Shoals, and how do we get
Führer.
Fuhrer?
Um, well, Durian sits on roads that come together in three. It's a set of forks in the road. I don't really know what you call it. Crossroads, but it's a three-way. Uh,
Sounds good to me.
so because of the fact that it sits on this intersection of roads, um, eventually a man got tired of it being safe in Durian, and he wasn't having to struggle hard enough. So he decided it was time to explore. His name was Jeremiah Brooks. Uh,
Makes sense.
Jeremiah Brooks headed east along the road, which no one had done before. I mean, once they found Durian, they stopped traveling.
Right.
It was heaven sent that they found this place that was ready to go, and they just expanded. Uh,
Okay.
so heading east along the road, he and a few of his more hardy followers fought their way through some pretty tough creatures at first, and they had to clear away. I mean, it was untraveled lands for some time. They could tell it was as difficult as coming from the north to the south, but not as long.
Got ya.
Um, when they got all the way to the end of the Eastern Great Road, they found a massive dock built of this same basalt stone, this volcanic rock. If I'm using that, I'm gonna have to look it up to make sure I am. But this volcanic rock built out of it, out in the river, and so they decided that it was a great place to settle. Um, Luckily enough, they had a man that had learned about boat building in the city of Durian in the Great Library before coming here. So they set about building barges almost immediately and exploring this river. And during that time period, they actually discovered that down here there is a huge amount of wreckage from other ships. Another mystery of the island that no one's quite sure why it is there.
Okay. Now,
Um,
and you said the Great Library Durian. was there when they got there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The Great Library and the four buildings, three of which are now used as schools, and one is used as like storage and a place to shelter the townsfolk.
Okay. Were there books in the library already?
Yep. Restocked. Some were moldering, but most were in decent condition. There's also stone tablets and scrolls. Not like casting scrolls, but scrolls with like ancient knowledge on, wrapped parchment. So.
Very neat. All right.
Mhm.
And then, last but not least, Führer.
So Führer's the ugly child of the island.
Poor Führer.
At this point in game time, the castaways have been here roughly 120 years. No one kept a perfect record, but they say it's about a buck 20. Um, about 30 years ago, the southern volcano erupted. And it didn't do a major eruption, but it was enough of an eruption that it created its own weather. It created a lightning storm above it. And from the town of Durian, the witnesses of this became the citizens of Fur. They decided that they wished to worship the Tempest, the great god Gozra, in a different way. They wanted to worship him through the weather he creates through the volcano. Um, so they moved south along the road to get close to the volcano and followed it until they found a dome made out of the same material that all the other pre-castaway structures are made out of. The dome itself is large enough to probably hold about 70, but currently the cult doesn't have any more than about 30 people. I mean, what else do you call a breakaway religion? It's always a
Right.
cult.
I was thinking that. No,
It's a cult till it's not.
tell
So
me more about the two volcanoes and the volcanoes slash mountains here.
So the volcanoes themselves, only one is active. The southernmost volcano is active. And in that volcano, actually, it is known to the humans that and half orcs and halflings and elves that live here that there are actually dwarves that have set up in the southern mountain. The dwarves are castaways as well, but instead of settling in the cities that the humans settled, they traveled straight to the mountain, as dwarves are wont to do.
You know, them rocks.
Oh yeah, gotta need them, gotta have them.
Now,
Um,
because it's a volcano, though, wouldn't that change their views on it?
what do you mean? The
So,
dwarves?
yeah.
Oh no, yeah, of course they love it. They can harvest that molten energy in there. I mean, that's a great way to run your kilns if you're running them. That's a lot of heat.
Okay, and what about this other mountain?
The other mountain, not much is known about. While Brooks and his men in Brooks Shoal do explore the river, they never set foot on the opposite island because the opposite island, it is known, holds monstrous humanoids and giants in large numbers. I mean, it's basically a small nation of them. So the humans that live here have never poked the bear. They don't want to poke the bear. Occasionally, Brooks will get into it with some of those, monstrous humanoids in
Like
this
close
southern bend.
spots.
Yeah,
Okay.
when they're doing some reclamation, if you will, but never ever have the humans tried to set foot, or the half orcs or the elves, onto the other nation, and vice versa. The monstrous humanoids have not tried to cross the river into these lands either, as far as the castaways.
Okay. And now we discussed kind of the dwarfs heading right to the mountain volcanic side. What
Hmm.
about the other nationalities? What about the elves or half orcs or gnomes or
So half orcs are held in high esteem in Pearson's Hold. They're actually the race that helped Pearson originally gain control of the small town that was built there. It's
okay,
now actually run as a prison and a work farm. Um,
or
he
camp?
also holds he also holds the monopoly on horses because he had the only stock that was available
Okay,
when the
so
island came here, and they're
half
not naturally here.
half orcs are primarily in Pearson's Hold. What about elves?
Nope, there's no elves that live in Pearson's Hold. It's primarily half orcs, halflings, and humans. The occasional elf will pass through. In fact, on the whole island, there's maybe 2 dozen elves.
Okay. And then
It's
where
not
do
a
the
very
gnomes
predominant
live?
race. Well, the gnomes themselves are not castaways. The gnomes are actually native to the island. They're the only known race that is native to the island. No one knows where they live, but every year the gnomes take to the Great Road since the castaways have got here and take magical items throughout the island, selling them to the people of the different towns. Also purchasing magic items and even masterworked items to take back home. They are known to be shrewd and savvy traders, and they're always led by a man named Gaz. For the last 120 years, it's been a man named Gaz.
Huh. Okay, and then
No one knows where they live, and if you start as a gnome, well, that's up to your GM if he wants to let you do that.
fair enough. And then is it safe to say then humans kind of have spread out throughout the island?
That's what humans are good for. That's what they're known for is having that breeding capacity, the ability to have 9 kids in their lifetime and 5 of them live and do it again and again and again. We're talking 6, 7 generations in that 120 years that have lived on this island for humans. For
fair.
dwarves, you're talking like half a generation,
Fair
maybe
enough.
a generation and a half.
Lifespans are definitely different.
Yeah.
So, now being a player in your campaigns, I'm still really new. I haven't played a whole lot. I haven't got to see a lot of your DMing as some of our awesome slicers and dicers have. But I can't help but notice the maniacal happiness in your voice when you talk about the swamp.
Oh, well.
So tell me a little bit about your swamp.
So I have this thing where I really like to kill players with water is dangerous in real life. It's very dangerous. People die in water. And I like that to transfer to my games. So, I'm always quoted as telling players that if they don't have swim as a skill, they'll probably die. I mean,
I've heard
chances are good. Chances are good if you can't swim, you're gonna die. So
no, but you have I know because you and I have worked on a lot of these textures together, and you've told me, kind of your ideas. Now, what is the idea behind the tidal wash outside of the swamp, and it kind of moves out a little bit too? It's a series of kind of like really tiny islands.
so
Se,
throughout
right?
yeah, throughout the year this wash, well, this whole thing will turn into a tidal wash. It's the rainy season when it's like the hurricane or monsoon season. When it's the dry season, this dries up a bit more. It's easier to traverse, easier to get around. But regardless, it's always filled with nasty creatures, and you've got to cross water to get to land.
Okay.
One way or another, you're on the water if you're in there. Even when it's drier, you still have to
Now,
land.
how does that affect Führer?
Well, Fuhrer is about a day's travel from the edge of the swamp. So they kind of have a strict no swamp policy. They really just worship them. I mean, everything they do involves the mountain and the little bit of farming that they do just to survive. They're the one town that doesn't export anything.
Okay. So they're just kind of self-sustaining cultists that are in their own little happy dome.
Yep, leave us alone down here. We're just checking out the mountain.
For any Stephen
just
King
wanna be close to it.
fans, you might want to think Under the Dome because that'll be fun.
There you go.
But is there any other things, any significant points you'd like to point out about this beautiful island and our creation of it?
No, I think we covered just about everything, other than I do encourage all GMs to make it their own. If you don't like the locations of things, change them when you're playing and using it. If you want to say that, oh no, halflings don't live out here, they only live on this little islet-shaped island over here. Cool, do it up, man. Whatever you guys want to do, use it the way you'd like. But if you do want to use it the way we do, feel free to give us comments, suggestions, questions, and we can answer those in future ones of these. So
you heard it from the GM. He's open. But so this is our creation. This is our island, mostly from the imagination of Rip. And we are pretty happy. We're excited to explore it and adventure. I know I am. I want to learn more. But if you guys have any questions or anything that we didn't cover, feel free to leave a comment below. Ask us away. We'll answer the best we can. If one of us doesn't see it, we have a good group here that a lot of sets of eyes, even if not all of them are great. I don't want to talk about it. But that's it for the Island of Maryland. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again in the next Dice Not Included episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.